Hello and happy October to clients and friends and other contacts, and welcome to the October webcast. It is a beautiful day here in Columbus, Ohio. I am Erik Thompson, the CEO and lead financial advisor of Peerless Wealth, a registered investment advisory here in Columbus, Ohio. So, like usual, I like to discuss a timely topic or provide some content that I think is of interest to my clients and other guests watching this. And typically I stay away from political discussions because I realize that these can often be very personal and end in very heated opinion. However, we have an election in 2 weeks. And while most of my clients typically take current events in stride and don't get caught up in short-term news and market swings as they should not, I don't think they would be human if they weren't at least a little bit worried about how the election might affect their portfolios. But before I do, I want to remind everyone of just a few thoughts I have as of late. It's no secret that this has been a very tough year with a lot of very unfortunate events. And maybe it's just me, but it seems like I've been hearing more and more conversations just about how bad America is and how bad the United States is. And I get it, especially this year. I think it's a great time to share a quote from Winston Churchill, and I'll read it for you. "Many forms of government have been tried and will be tried in this world of sin and woe. No one pretends that democracy is perfect or all-wise. Indeed, it has been said that democracy is the worst form of government except for all those other forms that have been tried." And I really like this quote because it reminds us that something can be good but not perfect. And personally, I can't think of another country that has balanced political stability and personal liberty better than that of the United States. So with that in mind, I'm going to go to some data. And there is a link on the email you got where you can view this data after if you'd like, but I'm going to go through it right now. And it's actually some information about elections and how they've affected the market. And it's from a company called First Trust, and which I really have been following their research and respect their research for a number of years. The first slide, it basically says S&P 500 index total returns for the first year of a 4-year presidential term. And actually, before I even go through this, I want to remind my clients and others that it's typically not a good idea to try to time current events, market time, and figure out how all these things will affect short-term movements of your portfolio. Because in my experience, we have just as good a chance of being wrong in that than being right. But I want to back that up with some data. And I also want to remind everybody that you're invested in companies, not politicians. And thankfully for that. So this first chart shows it starts in 1977 and it goes all the way to 2017. So for example, the 2017 return of 21.8%. 2017 was the first, we call that the first election year, even though Trump got in office in late 2016, he really didn't have his first year until 2017. And as you can see, that was a 21.8% increase. And in fact, the majority, going all the way back to 1977, the majority of first years for the stock market have actually been above average. If a Democrat was in office, the average return has been 19%. For a Republican was 12%. Both of those are above the 8 to 9% long-term averages of the S&P 500. So if anything, the data suggests that we're better off being in the market during the first year of an election rather than being out. But these things are horribly unpredictable. We see a few negative years, and I'll give you a couple of stories through my own experience as a financial advisor. I've been doing this for 22 years, so I've been through many elections. And the last couple, I remember in 2008, when Obama got elected, I had several clients that voted the opposite way that weren't big fans of Obama, and for that reason thought the world was going to come to an end, and called me up in a mini panic. And I reminded them again that they're invested in companies, not politicians, and policies and laws take a very long time to change. When presidents campaign on things, even if elected, they typically only get a fraction of that passed, and it sometimes takes years. Things don't change overnight. We don't have a dictatorship, thankfully, in my opinion. We have a system of checks and balances through Congress, and changes don't always happen as quick as people think. And in fact, stocks had a very good 4 years after that election. And then 4 years ago, when Trump got elected, I had a few other clients on the opposite political end of the spectrum who, they were emotional and upset because their guy didn't win and thought the world was going to come to an end because Trump was in office. And again, we actually had a pretty good 4 years in the markets. And so I wouldn't get too caught up on this stuff. In fact, the next slide, which is the S&P 500 index by president and makeup of Congress, I think is also very good. It actually goes through, the blue half is if we have a Democratic president, and it shows, okay, is it a full Democratic Congress? Is it a full Republican Congress? Is it a split Congress? And then on the right side, we have the Republican president with the same categories. And these are 4-year average annual returns. They're all positive. The worst is 7.5%. So there's so many other factors that affect the values of companies, and over time, the values of large, well-established companies like that are in the S&P 500, they do grow. They have hiccups, they have corrections, they scare us every now and then. But I think this is really valuable information. No matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, things tend to work out. And they work out because, again, we're investing in companies, not politicians. So I'm gonna be in the voting booth probably a couple of weeks from now, and we're gonna know who our next president is. In fact, we may not, because this one might be contested for a little while, but eventually we will know who the next one is. And when I'm voting, I'll be thinking of one more Winston Churchill quote. You can always count on Americans to do the right thing after they've tried everything else. So with that, I'll end the October webcast, and I will talk to you all probably in November when I do the next one. And as always, if you have any questions about your own personal situation, feel free to call. Thank you.